Hey there, men. Mike Yarbrough here of the Wolf and Iron Podcast. Welcome back to a Truck Talk Thursday episode. Glad to be talking to you guys. Hope your week is going well. Always look forward to chatting with you guys and getting some ideas out there for you, getting some thoughts out there for you. And I love to hear the feedback that I get on these as well. If you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome. This is a Truck Talk Thursday episode, which means I'm in my truck, driving, trying not to hit bikers and pedestrians and turtles and things of that nature. And also sharing some thoughts with you guys, man-to-man style. And, one of the things that I would appreciate if you've got something out of this episode, or out of these episodes, out of the Wolf and Iron Podcast, take a moment today, set aside some time, think about it when you get to work, when you get at a stopping point, leave a review for Wolf and Iron Podcast. You guys don't hear me ask for this very often. And the reason is that I know that it's difficult when you're kind of going through the podcast thing. You're probably listening to it on your way to work, you're on the bike, or you're at the gym or something along those lines. And so it's just not convenient. It's not easy to do, and you're not in the moment to do that. And you really just want to tune in to whatever the podcast is about. But reviews mean a lot to me. They mean a lot to the other guys as well that are going to come and look at Wolf and Iron and say, is this something that I want to be about? The other thing that you can do, if leaving reviews a pain in the butt on iTunes, by the way, that's where you would leave the review. If you're not an iTunes guy, or if you don't care to do that, just share the podcast. Share this episode. Share something of Wolf and Iron with your pals and let them know about it. And say, look, you guys need to be listening to this thing. This is what's up. And make sure the word gets out there. Because that's really, guys, this is how we're going to change the culture. It's going to be one guy at a time, man to man. Just like I'm talking to you guys right now, there are other men who need to hear this. They don't have men in their life that are talking these kinds of things. And they need it. And so that's what it's all about. So today I'm going to be talking about a little bit about overcoming the father wound. And I got a feeling this is going to be a multi-part episode, but probably not even, it's probably going to be broken up into multiple segments. You'll understand why as I kind of get into it here. So my dad died 2 Octobers ago from alcoholism. And if you guys know my story, I've mentioned this several times. I've talked about it. There's a previous Ask a Man episode, I believe, with my friend Brandon McConnell. So if you dig back through the history of the Wolf and Iron Podcast, I was going to say the annals, but I can always forget if it's annals or annals, but I'm pretty sure it's annals. That doesn't even sound right. But if you dig back through Wolf and Iron Podcast history, you'll get to some Ask a Man episodes where I think we talk about alcoholism, and I share. It was very pertinent at the time because my dad had just died. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. But my dad was an alcoholic, and he died at the age of 63, I believe, looking like he was about 83 years old, just totally worn out, and died in a hospital bed. I was there. I had to make the decision to kind of pull the plug, so to speak, and all that. It was very tough, and I never really got a chance to have any adventures with my dad. Loved my dad. I thought he was a very funny guy and very just lovable, likable kind of person, except for the alcoholism. And that's the sad state of so many alcoholics, unfortunately. They have so much potential that the alcoholism just destroys, right? And I'm kind of going through this process still of, now that he's passed, healing the wounds that were left there. And I'm very aware that there were wounds. I knew it even before he died. But there's something about your parent dying that kind of frees you up to, now you're not dependent upon them, basically, to help you move forward. And they don't have to ask for forgiveness. They don't have to make it up. They don't have to, turn the corner and be the good dad or the granddad or the whatever, or the mom, or whatever the case is. Now you get a chance to kind of work these things out for yourself. And I don't think your parent has to die for this to happen, but I think it's helpful, if I can say that, when they've moved on, to kind of grieve these things, because the door's been closed, right? A season has been closed. And so I'm actually preparing to scatter my dad's ashes. And I've been kind of, I don't want to say putting it off. I've just been trying to think about, how do I do this well and in a kind of a way that makes sense. It's a strange thing because in one sense I'm honoring my dad, and in one sense I'm having kind of I want to have this pretend epic adventure with my father that I never got a chance to have as a boy or even as a young man. And my dad, we never went on any trips. We never went anywhere, never did anything. And yet I believe that he would have loved to do it. I believe that he would have been the adventurous type. I think he would have loved to go and see places and do things if he didn't have the anxiety and the shame and the alcoholism that really kept him stuck. He's basically staying around Memphis and Mississippi most of his life. And, so I'm trying to think about where we're going to go. I think I've decided. It may change after I release this episode, but right now, Snow Lake up in Washington State is looking pretty darn amazing. And I could go. I thought about going to Banff up in Canada. It's fantastically beautiful. Thought about going to Yellowstone. Thought about going to Iceland even, and just taking in some epic sights there. And I may do some of these things over a period of years. I may save some of his ashes and scatter them some places and other places, and just kind of have many adventures. Although there's a part of me that kind of wants to get it all over with, if that makes sense, to have some closure. We had one good adventure and that was enough. Because I know it's not the same as actually going with my dad, and so part of me doesn't want to draw it out, but we'll see. But right now I'm kind of set on Snow Lake, and the reason that I want to do something, go someplace I've never been, is to kind of have a bit of a shocking moment of seeing some place for the first time that some part of my dad is there with me. And if, I'm going to be honest, if before my dad was cremated, this would have sounded all kinds of weird and kind of creepy to me, to be honest. It would have sounded really strange. I don't think my dad's like in the ashes and his spirit still remains there. He's going to be like a ghost seeing it or anything like that. I don't even think he gets a chance to see it or experience it from the vantage point of heaven, hopefully where he is, or any of that stuff. It's really more symbolic for me, and it's just kind of a bit about the earthly attachment there. And just to think that, hey, look, even though you couldn't take yourself there, even though you couldn't go see some of these things, I'm gonna witness them as your offspring, and I'm gonna bring some aspect of you along and honor you in that way. And I think that's kind of the old school way of doing things, right? The fathers who didn't know how long they were going to live, they looked to their sons and their grandsons to carry on the legacy. And they could die knowing that, their son was going to inherit the land, or their son was going to experience a life that they didn't get a chance to experience, but that they were some part of it, just in knowing that in the lineage they were still connected there in some kind of way. And I think that's meaningful. It's meaningful to me anyhow. I think it would have been meaningful to my dad as well. I think he would think it's pretty damn cool, to be honest with you. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a trek out there and go to Snow Lake, maybe Jim Lake as well, which is about 1.5 miles from that. I've never done anything like this in my life. I've traveled in the safe kind of realms. I've been to different states, been up north, but I've never been in the Pacific Northwest. And, but I've never seen anything like mountainous areas of Washington, the Cascades, right? That stuff is just, that's the stuff for movies. That's the stuff for postcards and Ansel Adams type of stuff and whatnot. Apparently you can see Mount Roosevelt from there as well. And I tried to do some research to determine which Roosevelt it was named after. I don't know if it was, because it's so far west, I don't know if it would have been Theodore, but maybe. But anyhow, it'll be cool to see some of that scenery and to have that experience. Part of this though, as I'm walking through it, I've kind of got a couple of things going on in my mind. One is because I share so much stuff with you guys, and I know that many of you have a father wound that you're trying to get healed of, and it's probably going to be a lifelong process, but I think you can make some good progress in a short period of time. Part of me wants to record this, to share it with you guys, to be extremely vulnerable. There's another aspect where I just want it to be extremely personal, right? Me and my dad. And I don't know if I can do those things at the same time. I think there's a concern that I have that I'll be detached from the moment if I'm trying to film it, make it into something that's digestible by an audience versus just maybe sharing it in a blog post with some pictures or something like that afterwards. I don't know. Maybe I'll record it as something kind of personal, just for myself, and maybe I'll decide to share it down the road. So if you guys get to see it, you get to see it. If you don't, you don't. Maybe there's some aspects of it you'll get a chance to see, some of the pictures and things of that nature. I will say this. You don't have to do the epic thing for it to be meaningful to you. I asked the guys on the Wolf and Iron Facebook group, and I tell you, I keep talking about the guys over here in our Facebook group because they're just phenomenal. I said, look, I'm going to be scattering my dad's ashes. I'm just looking for places to do this. Where could I go? What are some meaningful things that I could do to really make this, a remarkable kind of thing for me? And a lot of the guys were like, look, just plant his ashes under a tree, or plant a tree on top of his ashes, I guess is a better way of saying it. And, as that tree grows, you'll kind of know that your dad's buried there to some degree. And it got kind of weird, like if it's a peach tree, are you eating part of your dad? One guy said he wanted to be put under a sugar maple, which I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then they could tap it for sugar, or for maple syrup. And I thought, well, they'll be like pouring you on waffles. And he's like, yeah, but I'll be productive afterwards. And I was like, I get that. That totally makes sense to me. But whatever it is, it doesn't have to be the epic adventure. It doesn't have to be going to Iceland or going to halfway, across the country, essentially. It doesn't have to be anything major. It can be finding a spot that your dad liked, finding something that you guys had in common. My dad and I both enjoyed music. I could, take his ashes on a tour like the Gibson factory or something, I guess. That'd be kind of weird. I wouldn't tell anybody about it. But there are other things that I could do which would be meaningful. I just know for myself, there's an aspect, there's a real longing there to do something kind of monumental with my dad. And it may be the only trip that me and him, in some kind of symbolic way, get a chance to take. I don't know what God has in store for us, when we finally make it upstairs. If he's there, and I hope he is, maybe there will be adventures in store. I'm not sure exactly how that works. I don't know how the father-son connection will play out up there. Don't know if it even matters much. But it matters to me now. But I say this, if you guys are in a similar position and you're thinking, well, I've got my dad's ashes, or I've got something to remember him by, or maybe I just have his memory. Maybe I just have a desire to heal this wound that I know is there that was caused by his absence, if nothing else. He was never around. I didn't know my father. Whatever the case happens to be. I think having a symbolic trek like this and getting out to a place where you can be alone, where you can think through things, you can give your father thanks for bringing you into this world to some degree, having a part in the fact that you're here. If that's all that you got, that's all you got. And if the rest of it is, what a sorry SOB you were, I wish it could have been better, I wish you could have been different, I'm never going to be like you, I'm going to learn from your mistakes. I like to think that wherever my dad is, he could handle it. He could handle hearing it. Back in the day when he was alive, I don't think he could. I think it would have just sent him down further. And honestly, it wasn't in my heart to say it. But, nowadays, I've been having some dreams lately. And this is part of my reason, I guess, for doing this. Or maybe I'm having the dreams because I'm kind of going on this experience. But I've been having dreams about my dad. And he's there, and, I'm talking to him, and I'm crying like a little boy, and I'm talking about how I miss him, and I wish he was there, and I just need him, right? And that tells me that, you could say one thing about dreams. You could say, well, they're just dreams. You're kind of in a heightened emotional state. You believe all kinds of things that aren't true. Yeah, I get that. But there's also an aspect where your subconscious is trying to work things out that your conscious mind, isn't processing for one reason or another. And I think that there are things that, I still need to process. I think that little boy needs time to grieve. And I'll tell you guys what, I cried like a baby when my dad was dying there on the hospital bed. And that was healing. But I think I need more than that. I think I need more time than that. And there have been moments over the years where I've experienced something and I thought, I wish I could just tell my dad. When my book came out about pocket knives, I thought, it'd be awesome if my dad got a chance to just know I made it. right? Just know that I did something cool. If he had a chance just to, hear about the businesses that are going on and, to see some pictures and things like that, or see his grandkids, those kinds of things, they trigger me, right? And as they should. I miss my dad. I wish he was around. I wish he had the life that allowed him to live to the age of, old man, and went out the right way. But he didn't. And there's some hurt there that I need to heal. So that's what I'm going to do. Anybody has any feedback on trekking in Washington? I'll be going in the Cascades probably around mid to late June or sometime in July is my guess. And I kind of want to jump on this as soon as I can. So this podcast may be actually launching at about that time. And so, if you have any feedback, any thoughts, let me know. And, love to hear from you. All right. My son is trying to get into the truck now because I've pulled into the house. A fitting ending. I don't know. Kids and fathers doing their thing. He's asking me why I'm not unlocking the door. All right. Stuff you guys get to experience. Yeah, okay. Well, here we go. Wrapping it up. Talk to you guys later.